today we are going to go to Turkey. We are joined by Aykan Erdemir, who is a former member of the Turkish parliament and non-resident senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, let me ask you, was this a different kind of an attack there in Turkey? It was a tourist area.
Now, we had another suicide attack at the very same spot just a little over a year ago. That was by a Chechen widow, the widow of an Islamist Chechen fighter. This time we have an Islamic State attack at the same spot. So this was the second suicide attack there. But then you should also keep in mind that there has been 4 IS attacks, Islamic State attacks, within the last 6 months in Turkey, in different parts of Turkey. So Turkey is becoming quite accustomed to such attacks by Islamist terrorists.
Yes, I think the president has been quoted today as saying Turkey is the first target of all terrorist groups. Is that the feeling there?
Now, to be frank, the public has slightly a different take on the issue. And it's not that Turkey is the first target, but it is that Turkey has so far been quite negligent and complicit in the rise of radicalism in the Middle East. Because the Turkish government's policy for quite a while was either to turn a blind eye to rise of violent extremism in Syria or to support its own proxies. And members of the academia and the intellectuals have been warning the government that this would ultimately lead to a blowback. And some people even call this Pakistanization of Turkey. That is, by supporting proxies across the border, Turkey was basically paving the way for a blowback from the rise of radicalism. And this is exactly what we are seeing now. Turkey is being pulled into Islamist violence in the Middle East.
Have the Turkish authorities been doing anything in the last few months? We've seen them appearing to step up some counterterrorism against the Islamic State and kind of cracking down. Maybe we're hearing stories about an attempt to do something about the porous border. Did they try to maybe close the gate after the horse had bolted, as they say?
Yes, for the last 6 months, since the attack in Diyarbakir and Suruç, which were also horrific attacks, Turkey seems to be trying to crack down on Islamic State activity in Turkey and is now has much stricter border controls. But the problem is radicals have already been ingrained within Turkish society. In a poll last year, we have seen that 8% of the Turkish public seems to be supportive of the Islamic State activity. And to be frank, the government has done very little and very late. So from now on, it will be a great challenge to limit further Islamic State activity.
What is the sense? Is this a turning point at today's bombing in Istanbul? Is, as you say, the chickens are coming home to roost in Turkey and not doing enough about the Islamic State. Is there a feeling there that this could be the incident that finally brings Turkey to concentrate on this?
To be frank, we had an attack on October 10th last year in the capital in Ankara, and there were over 100 casualties there. And if there was ever a moment to wake up, I would argue the Ankara attack at the very heart of Turkey's capital would be one. And we haven't seen much of a change in Turkish government policy. And the background to this negligence has a lot to do with the ideological orientation of the current Turkish government. Turkey is ruled for the last 13 years by an Islamist party, the Justice and Development Party, AKP, and this party has a lot of affinities with Islamic radicals in the Middle East. Sure, they do not toe an Islamic State line, but as we all know, the boundaries between radical groups in the Middle East are very porous, and you never know which group you're supporting, or you never know where your weapons, ammunition, or cash or logistical support might end up in the Middle East. So that's precisely what Turkey is suffering from. In trying to design Syrian policy, Turkey is now feeling the blowback from that proxy war.
Now, what does the Islamic State gain from this terror attack?
I think the latest attack in Istanbul was a very well calculated attack to hit Turkey at its softest spot. That is, its tourism capital, Istanbul. And keep in mind that the suicide attack was just a few hundred meters from the landmark Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque. And 8 of the killed were German tourists. There was 1 Norwegian tourist, 1 Peruvian tourist. So this hits Turkey at its touristic heartland, and Turkey is quite hard-pressed for the foreign currency coming from tourism, especially now that it's suffering from the Russian kind of campaign against Turkey. Russia is limiting Turkish exports. Russia is limiting the number of Russian tourists coming to Turkey. So Turkey, more than ever, feels it needs the tourism income, and I think ISIS is hitting right at there.
Yeah, hitting right where the money is.
Exactly.
All right. Many of the dead were Germans, weren't they? That is what is being reported today.
Yes, 8 of them.
Okay, so 8 of them. Obviously, this is bringing Germany closer to the Middle East. We've got quotes today of Angela Merkel saying, they're going to crack down on terrorism. They're going to do something. They vow not to let this go without justice. So this terrorist attack has affected Turkey, but has also drawn Germany closer into the fray.
Now, Germany was actually drawn into this issue with the Syrian refugee crisis.
So it's complicated it even more.
Yes. In fact, it was, again, Merkel who took the lead in Europe in trying to revive Turkey's EU accession process, EU membership process. And now this was quite ironic because it was Merkel herself and the Christian Democratic Union in Germany that was against Turkey's full membership to the European Union, and it was again Merkel herself who offered instead a privileged partnership. But now we see that Merkel has shifted her position. She is trying to appease Turkey by looking the other way at Turkey's human rights violations, and is at least giving Turkey the impression that the full membership process is back on track. This, of course, is all in exchange for Turkey to act as a border guard, to restrict the Syrian refugees from moving on to European Union, and also to tackle the Islamic State at the Syrian border. Now, whether this will bear fruit, I think that's a long shot. I personally do not believe that Turkey has the capacity at this point either to curb Syrian refugee flows to the European Union or to tackle the Islamic State effectively.
Finally, let me ask you, do you think this attack today is going to change anything?
I think there will be a lot of rhetoric, of course, and in fact, the current Turkish President Erdogan addressed the annual ambassadors conference and right after the suicide attack, and his rhetoric was very interesting because normally this is an Islamist politician who has always been very critical of the West, but today we had a different kind of persona. He was very critical of Iran and Russia for a change, and he had very constructive and positive comments to say about Europe. Now, we see that he is feeling the pressure to move closer to the transatlantic alliance. For example, just 2 years ago, Turkish President Erdogan appealed to Putin to allow Turkey to be a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And it was quite a scandalous appeal because Turkey is a member of the NATO, the second largest army in NATO. But today it seems Turkey is back on track with its transatlantic orientation. Of course, it's a tactical move from an Islamist president. Turkey is trying to move forward with rapprochement with Israel after very stormy years. So it seems Turkey, at least at a tactical level, is trying to put its European Union, NATO, and Israeli relations on track.
All right. Further complicating just about everything. Thank you so much for joining us, Aykan. We appreciate it, and our condolences to the terrorist attack in Turkey.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you.